Welcome to another edition of Nutmeg Chatter, the Claus Chatter edition. This week we have the Renaissance man himself, Mr. Kurt Boucher. He's a puppeteer, musician, voice actor, talk show host, and actor, just to name a few. First question, when the hell do you sleep?
I don't at all.
Yeah, neither do I. People ask me the same thing. I was like, I don't have time to sleep. There's too many fun things going on. And it seems like you are grabbing for every fun thing there is out there.
Yeah, it feels like, well, I know from having a conversation with you, you don't like to say no to projects. And that's great. And that's the way to like find yourself in really interesting situations. And you never know where one thing after another is going to lead to.
I was going to say, because there's so many, sometimes I do something, I'm like, oh, this really was not the best time I had, but that opened up a door to something else. I'm like, oh, wow, I love this. So yeah, there's so many things I started doing that led to other things. And one thing that led to where I first met you is Nutmeg Junction. And I want to talk about how you got involved in that, what that is, explain to my audience.
Well, Nutmeg Junction is it's a audio drama. It's all originally scripted by J. Timothy Quirk. And it's half-hour episodes, and they're just amazing audio drama, mostly comedy stories that we do different voices on. Yeah, and it's opened up a new thing. Voice acting as opposed to regular acting. Voice acting is amazing because it just feels like there's instead of putting the character, you can, when you're regular acting, you can transmit so much information through a facial expression or the way you're standing. But with voice acting, you have to do all of that with your voice and, of course, with sound effects. And thankfully, Joe has amazing writing, so he makes a lot of that easy.
Yeah, which I love too. Now, how did you first get involved with that?
So I met Joe when Keith Paul did a production of Space Pandas. Is it a David Mamet play? And we did a staged reading of that. And Lana Peck and I were in that.
She's also in Nutmeg Junction.
Yes.
Yes.
And so was Joe.
Yes.
J. Timothy Quirk.
He is the man behind the curtains. Like, ignore that man behind the curtain. He's the writer, producer, director, actor. So
yep.
He basically, without him, he's always very humble. Oh, you know what? Without you guys, we'd be nothing. No,
and I don't know when he sleeps either.
God, that's another whole story. He's had me on his show before, and I asked him that, and I really don't think he does. I mean, he has 2 jobs, has 2 kids, and he comes out with 4 scripts on a moment's notice. I don't know how he does it, and they're fresh, they're funny, they're relevant.
Definitely.
Now, for you, you started working with Lana Peck a long time ago, right?
Lana and I met Lana over at I had a friend who went to the University of New Paltz, SUNY New Paltz, and that's how I met Lana. And we've been friends since the 80s sometime, late 80s, early 90s. So I've known her a long time. I've done a lot of different projects with her over the years. At some point, being in Connecticut, or coming back to Connecticut, I reconnected with her. I reconnected with my friend Jim also, and the 3 of us created a project called Glum Puppet. At the time, just using the name Glum Puppet, not planning on doing any puppeteering in it, but we started doing puppeteering in it. I was imagining the actual puppets in the name Glum Puppet was myself, Lana, and Jim. The 3 of us together were the actual puppets because we're making ourselves work on these different projects. And the whole point of that project was to practice, to exercise the creative muscle. So what we would do is we each pick a topic each week, and the 3 of us each had to produce a video on that. And during that, we would also help each other out with our different videos. And Jim passed at some point, and we stopped doing that. But shortly after he passed, Lana was asked to back up or open for the band Pocket Vinyl here in Torrington. Mm-hmm. And she asked me to come along with her. And then we met Pocket Vinyl, and we also realized that this is something we could do in front of people. So we've done a number of stage shows as Glum Puppet.
So who would write the show? Would that be you? Or is it collaboration?
We each write our own pieces, and most of the pieces are that we perform would be musical pieces. So it's mostly songs that we back each other up on.
So you're a musician as well, and you play guitar, I think.
I play a little bit of guitar. My favorite instrument right now is a ukulele because it's so relaxing to play. It's the kind of thing, especially I'm getting arthritis in my pinkies as I get older. And a ukulele, 3 fingers is enough to do most things.
I do have to say, I met Tiny Tim, and he did seem very relaxed.
Yeah, I telecommute. So one of the things that I was doing for a while is when I got off of work to have like that break that you don't get when you telecommute of driving home, I'd go sit on the couch and I'd just play ukulele for half an hour or whatever, an hour, and it was a wonderful way to unwind.
Yeah. So, like, what kind of puppets did you have?
Wow, we've made a bunch of puppets depending on what was required. I've made some very Muppet-like puppets, which are very time-consuming, but also I've made puppets just out of paper bags. We have this one recurring character named Will Wheaton puppet, who is literally a a toilet tissue tube on a stick. And he was a recurring character for a long time. I still have him. And, it wasn't making fun of Will Wheaton because the character's last name was Puppet.
Yeah.
His first name was Will and middle name was Wheaton, and his last name was Puppet. So there's also a video out there somewhere where he's getting confused for the real Will Wheaton.
Yeah, can people still see this? Is it on YouTube?
It's on YouTube, yeah, on the Glum
out.
Puppet channel, yeah.
Whenever I think of Glum, I think of sadness, but it sounds like you're just having a great time.
We're just doing things just to make ourselves laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I was in radio years ago, and the one thing they taught me was you don't have to be funny. As long as you're having fun, it's going to translate through the airwaves. And I think it's the same thing with you. It's like even if you're amusing yourselves, people are going to be probably more amused with the fact that you guys are having fun. Like this is great, even though maybe all the jokes aren't hitting with everybody. It's just you guys are having a great time, and that's going to be more translatable.
Absolutely.
And I've done that with even stand-up comedy, which is another story. But have you ever tried that? It seems like you've tried pretty much everything.
I have not tried that.
Yeah.
Jim Clark, who I worked with for many years on a bunch of different projects, he did do that. And he enjoyed the little bit he did of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun, but it gets a little tedious after a while, for me anyway. You drive 4 hours to a place, and you're like, all right, well, since the last person went too long, we're going to cut you down to 4 minutes. Like, I just drove 4 hours for 4 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't, at the same time, it seems really intriguing to do.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it seems really potentially devastating to do. Yeah. So I admire that you've done that.
I did over 400 shows in 4 years. I was doing like 3-4 states a week.
Oh, wow.
And I loved it. And even though, just like we talked about before, like with other things, it's like the worst experience was still good. Like sometimes I would get off stage. I'm like, the audience didn't react the way I wanted them to. But then there would be somebody go, you know what? I thought you were funny. I run a show. I'd love to have you on my show. So even sometimes like you just get that one person that laughed, I always considered it a success. So I never really got off stage going, oh, this is horrible.
And I think with that kind of experiences, because I've performed in front of crowds, and a song that I thought was really funny, just no reaction from, and it becomes a learning experience. Yeah. So even if it's a bad show, you learn something from that. So you can always move forward with it.
Yeah. I think it was either Dave Chappelle or George Carlin had a great comment. They said, for a comedian that has never bombed, never wrote a new joke. You can't you're never always going to be on. You're never always going to be. So, I mean, you just have to find out what works best. And every audience is different. I used to do the same set for 4 states in a week, and every audience had different reactions. So you really never know. I just go by what I'm happy with, like you did with your show. Like, you know what? I'm using myself. I think it's funny. I'm just going to stick with that. And then, I tweak it here and there. But, yeah.
And absolutely. I mean, you see that kind of thing in theater all the time. You'll have the same script, the same cast, different audiences reacting differently to it. And that is amazing, actually.
Yeah, I know you've done, you did the live show for Glum Puppets. Yeah. Have you ever done acting for plays or other shows?
So I always ended up either having very small roles in things, just kind of walk on things.
Yeah.
What I really loved in theater was stage managing because it's all I think the song Bishop Allen, or the band Bishop Allen had a song, and they talk about all the sneaky things you do in the dark. Talking about like being a stagehand and stage managing. There's the stuff that you do that makes the show run smoothly. I was in the Adobe Theater in Albuquerque doing a production of Harvey, and because so many of the special effects to make Harvey the one scene at the end where a door actually opens and closes, and then a spotlight tracks him across the floor, and then another door opens and closes. Just coordinating people to do that invisibly. And it sounds like it's really simple, but the door that was opening, closing, one of them was a glass door. So you couldn't just like be behind it and open and close it. You had to kind of like do things and then quickly and silently move around and just do things like that. I loved that. I loved creating this impossible magic on the stage.
We have the Renaissance Man here. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back in a moment with puppeteer, musician, voice actor, talk show host, and actor Kurt Boucher on Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter Edition. Welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter Edition. I am speaking with my guest, puppeteer, voice actor, talk show host, musician, and actor Kurt Boucher. Kurt, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rich.
I'm so glad to have you on the show. We were talking about all the different things you've done, and one thing that you do, which I love, you are a co-host of a public access show called Nerd Talk, which I started off as a former guest, and now I'm a co-host with you. I love that show, and I want to talk about the origins of that, and the origins where it started and how it evolved into what it is today, because I think it's great. And I'll tell you why after you give me your answer.
Okay. I'll try and give the really condensed answer on this.
We got plenty of time.
I started off, I started going down to CTV in New Haven because my friend Sean Morse had a show in Seymour, on Seymour Public Access, called Live Bands Touring TV, where he would interview musicians and have them do performances. And I wanted to help him out with that show, and they said, certainly, but you need to get certified in your own station, in your own town. So that's why I started going down to CTV to do that. I was volunteering down there. Seymour does everything pre-recorded. CTV in New Haven, the shows almost always go out live, the first version. So there's mistakes that happen, and there's things that happen, and it's live television, which is amazing to work in because you've got to get it right. You've got one chance to get it right, and that's how it lives, warts and all. So,
let me interrupt for a second, because sometimes I think the warts make it even better, because not everything in life runs perfectly. So sometimes when you're doing a live TV show, a live radio show, you see the mistakes and people can relate to that more. Like, oh yeah, I don't know, it just seems like it's more relatable instead of a robot behind a mic or a robot behind a camera saying, yes, we'll be back with Nerd Talk after this. I actually like watching a TV show where people mess up and they have fun and they joke about it. I mean, that's why so many people in the movies love the blooper reels.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The blooper reels, yeah.
So I had a live TV show at one time years ago. It was called Real Time, REEL, long before Bill Maher had his show. Not saying he copied me. I'm just saying, weird coincidence. But anyway, it was a live TV show, and I used to have phone calls. And sometimes I would have to worry about, what they were going to say and just try to cut them off before they try to get a swear in really quickly. But I had a good time. I never knew what was going to happen or who was, every time I hit the phone, who was going to answer and what they're going to say. But it made it more exciting. So I love live TV. And you're actually on live Facebook as well, too, like Facebook Live.
It goes out on Facebook Live as well, most of the times when we do it.
Now, what year was this that you started when you were going down there for the bands?
I really want to say it was like 4 years ago that I started getting involved with public access and with Sean's show. He's taking a short hiatus right now, but he's looking at bringing that show back. But as soon as I was down at CTV, getting myself certified, I realized I was in love with that station because of the community surrounding it, and because, again, live TV versus pre-recorded. They're both wonderful and they're both interesting. Mike Illian, who is my co-host on Nerd Talk, he and I were sitting there at CTV volunteering for someone else's show, and they didn't show up. Actually, they forgot that they had a show that month. And when someone called them up, I think the phrase that they said is, "There's no Tuesday this month." So we ended up. They came to us and said, "Hey, we got a half an hour to fill. You wanted to put on a show?" And we said, "Okay." And because Mike and I had been sitting around talking about anime and conventions and computer stuff and stuff like that. Before that, one of the interns there, Max, called it Nerd Talk. Just like typed the name in, and we went and did the show, and we talked for half an hour. It flew by like nothing. And when we got done, they said, "Do you want to do that every month?" And we've been doing it since.
Like we said earlier, never say no. You never know where it's going to lead to. So
Yeah.
we jumped at the opportunity, and so I went on as a guest with Nutmeg Junction with Joe Timothy Quirk, and you said, "Rich, you want to be a guest on for another episode?" I said, "Yeah, I love it." And then finally you said, "Rich, you want to be a co-host?"
That's also how Katarina became a co-host. Is she came on with the Connecticut Whovian Club, and then she came back because she's a Wonder Woman cosplayer and knows a lot about Wonder Woman. We went on to do an episode about Wonder Woman when the movie was coming out.
Yeah.
And then she was on for another episode. And I'm kind of like, why don't you just become a regular? Because smart lady knows her stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why. And also, when I've added co-hosts, it's always, even the Puppet George was originally a guest.
Oh, yeah. Tell my audience about George. I love George.
George is a little orange puppet that I bought off of John Bristol. It was one of his very early puppets, I think. And he was selling them at one point on his page, selling off his old stock of puppets. And I just saw it on the page, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy that. And then, so he appeared in a couple other things that I put him in, and then we just wanted to have like Lana on the show without Lana being on the show because she wanted to do something different. So I said, "Here's this puppet, just be this puppet and just be a jerk." and so George was born, and yeah.
George is a very sarcastic puppet, which I love.
Yeah.
Always looming over the guests on the green screen. It definitely adds to the show.
Oh, we did that one episode where we put on the green screen behind us, so it was huge behind us. But I don't know if we're going to continue doing that because it was a little too distracting.
I thought it was funny, but I know what you mean. I'm also heard that you might have another co-host, Jason. Is that accurate, or is he just a guest?
Oh, he's just going to be a guest.
Okay.
Jason Koulis may come on as a guest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, pretty soon we're going to have the co-host sit in the studio while the guest is in the other room because we have so many co-hosts.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
we are topped out for co-hosts right now. Yeah.
There's just not enough chairs in the studio.
I think to make sure everyone has enough time. That's why we recently went from half an hour to an hour. That was part of it because I felt like we all don't have enough time to talk on it and really like talk to the guests.
Oh yeah, I mean, an example would be we start off the show talking about what we did over the week, and next thing you know, it's like 15 minutes in. We're like, all right, let's speak to our guest. Oh, it's already time to wrap up. Yeah, so the half hour goes by very, very quickly.
Flies by so quickly. Yeah.
All right, well, the reason I love the show Nerd Talk is because that opens up the area. You could talk about any topic in the world, and one of the topics that I love talking about are movies, and you are very knowledgeable in obscure movies, and I want to talk about. I love your knowledge in obscure movies, and you let me borrow two, which I promise I'm going to watch. But there's one I want to talk about. It stars Robert Downey Sr. and Robert Downey Jr., and I think Hervé Villechaize is also in that movie.
It's directed by directed by Robert Downey Sr. and Robert Downey Jr. appears as a little boy in the movie. And yes, Hervé Villechaize is in it, and Alan Arbus.
Yes.
Who most people would recommend
the
psychiatrist Sidney Freeman.
That would be the one.
On MASH, yeah.
All right, well, we have to take a break. I want to get more into that when we come back. So we'll be back in a moment with puppeteer, musician, voice actor, talk show host, and actor Kurt Boucher on Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter edition. Welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter edition. I am speaking with puppeteer, voice actor, talk show host, musician, and actor Kurt Boucher. Kurt, welcome back. And before the break, we were talking about your knowledge of obscure movies, and the movie that I promise I'm going to watch. I did watch part of it, and I loved what I saw. It's directed by Robert Downey Sr., stars a baby Robert Downey Jr., Alan Arbus, the psychiatrist in MASH, and Hervé Desplaines Villages.
Yeah, it's called Gracier's Palace, and it was filmed in mostly Madrid, New Mexico, and also was filmed up in if you've ever been to New Mexico and you drive up from New Mexico and take the scenic route, there's the Valles Caldera, which is this enormous, wide open crater that now is full of grazing land, and it's one of the most beautiful, peaceful places on Earth, I think. And until recently, you couldn't actually really like go on the land, and now you can go on the land, but there's like something they allow like 20 people a day to visit. It's some, I don't know the exact number. Don't like hold me to that.
Yeah.
And then there's the hiking trails that are there. Again, there's a very small number of people are allowed on them per day. And it's this beautiful place. And part of it was filmed there, but also were like a ton of other like Westerns and things like that. There's actually a scene where the character Jesse parachutes into that field, played by Alan Arbus, and Jesse so it's a story of Jesus, but told as kind of a spaghetti Western, which is a wonderful premise, and it's a really weird movie. It's definitely not for kids, but it's really out there. Jim and I did a review on a movie show we had on YouTube of it as well. The kind of stuff that happens in the movie, it's very unexpected. You can tell they had a lot of fun making it. God appears as kind of the stranger. You have a literal ghost running around as the Holy Ghost, and he gets mad and yells at everything. It's
that's funny. I definitely have to. I did see the part where Alan Arbus parachutes down. I have to get a little bit deeper into the movie, and I promise I will. It's just been a little crazy the last what you let me borrow it about a year ago. It's been less crazy the last year, man. What is your favorite genre in movies? Do you have a favorite genre, or is it just anything that's interesting? Because I mean, for me, I like horror movies, I like dramas, I like comedies. So, I mean, I do have many interests. And before I get started into that, 'cause you mentioned what that movie is like, Jesus as a spaghetti Western.
Yeah.
Did you see the movie Mother, starring
Yes.
Jennifer Lawrence? You know what? The first time I saw it, I said, "This is a weird movie, but I like it." Then I read what it's about, and it's basically the Bible. And then I saw it again, and I loved it, because then I understood exactly, like, she represented Earth, he was God, and then Ed Harris was Cain. No, not Cain. Sorry, Adam. Michelle Pfeiffer was Eve. So I mean, it was sort of the same, different type of movie, obviously, but along the same line of like what the movie was about, and it was interesting the way they did it.
Yeah, and the way they did it, and again, it's not a movie that anyone. It's a disturbing movie. Mother is definitely, but it was definitely worth a watch. And seeing it on the big screen, the first time I saw it, I also did not know what it was about, and when I read about it afterwards, I'm like, oh. Yeah,
no, it seems so clear. Like, oh, of course it's about that. When you're watching it, I have no idea what's going on. Especially like when she wanted to show everybody her new baby, and I said, "Oh, what's going on here?" And
then don't do a spoiler. Yeah,
no spoiler alerts. But yeah, it's just like, oh, now I know what that represents. So that was baby Jesus. But I love movies that take a risk, because I think that Hollywood is way too safe now. Everything's just doing the same old plot, same old formula. Yep. Oh, well, let's make some money and we'll go on to the next one. It's just basically different movie, same title. So I love movies like the one you just mentioned and Mother. What do you some of your favorites now?
There's a movie that came out like a year and a half ago, Isle of Dogs. It's Wes Anderson. It's animated.
Oh, I wanted to see that.
It's
I
kind
saw
of
a trailer.
Like claymation animated, I believe. It is beautiful. Especially if you have ever owned a pet. Yeah, yeah. Bring some tissues. You might lose it during that one. And it's a little weird, but give it time. It's just really amazing. Um, it just has to be a little different for me to like something as a movie. I'll watch any genre except I won't watch
rom-coms.
I won't watch snuff or rom-coms. They're about the same thing. No,
I don't know which one's more painful.
even like a good rom-com is okay, but it's got to be really good. Like I thought. I can't think of the name of it. High Fidelity is actually a rom-com, but it's written from almost a man's point of view, so it's different. It's interesting. Yeah, so it's
how they, like we said, like I like the way the movies do a take on the movie. So that one, had a different take on it. It wasn't the same old formula like, oh, girl finds boy, boy loves girl, girl doesn't love boy, and then now they're living happily ever after. That one had a different take on it, and it was funny, and it.
Yeah.
So I understand, and I like that movie myself too. So
it's not like Failure to Launch, which is maybe the worst movie ever made. Like I watch Manos Hands of Fate for fun, and I think Failure to Launch is bad. I like movies that surprise me.
Yes.
And so
I like originality.
If something like just does something unusual, and it's not the same old cookie cutter. Yeah.
Well, speaking of movies, you've actually been in movies. It's called the 48-Hour Film Project, and that's where you have to come up with a concept, write the movie, direct the movie, produce it, have everybody act in it. Then, after everybody's gone, you have to edit it all within 48 hours. You did that with Mike Ilian, co-host of Nerd Talk. Tell me about your experience with that.
I did that with Mike Ilian. I've also done that with Doug Dangermond. And I'm always working behind the scenes, and that's cool. And that's great because you just pull a team together and someone writes overnight and is up all night writing, and then you get a call in the morning. This is what we need. Okay, let's make it happen. I've been on the art team. I got to work with a really wonderful man, Phil Skippy Adams, who does a lot of horror special effects. The first year I did that, Doug Dangerman did a movie called Losing Face, where in a scene in it, sorry, spoiler alert, the bad guy peels the face off of a woman, and we do it all with special effects. And like being there and seeing how he did that and how he pulled the effects off, and also like just talking with Skippy, and he's got all these different bottles and there's different blood in different ones, and he's got a plastic tote and it's full of body parts. It was just so much fun working with him. And then the following year we had to do a completely different kind of stuff, but I got to work with him again, doing making vines out of paper towel and latex and so forth. It was amazing. And then putting the stuff to use in the field. Working with Mike Ilian, I was his script supervisor and assistant director, so I was kind of like trying just to keep everything rolling on course. But just being part of a team, having a goal, and trying to get done in time, it's a lot of fun. If anyone's into that kind of thing at all, I highly recommend checking out the 48-hour film festival.
I did this past year, this last July, with another Nutmeg Junction person.
Tiffy McKay.
Yep, Tiffy McKay, and I had a lot of fun. I was the humble troubadour, and it was written by Joe Timothy Quirk. Great script, right. And Tiffy was great, and we did that. We got it done. Didn't win any awards, but I really didn't care about that. I just wanted to. I loved the experience and everybody working together to get it, for the common goal. And I did like the finished project. You can find that on YouTube under the 48-Hour Film Project.
What was the title on that again?
The Company You Keep.
That's right.
Company You Keep.
Tiffy's amazing.
We have the Renaissance man here, puppeteer, musician, voice actor, talk show host, and actor Kurt Boucher on Nutmeg Chatter, the Claus Chatter Edition.